British Airways is now pouring a beer that 5 years ago nobody outside one Cotswold village had ever tasted.
British Airways, which is where I am now, is now serving that lager on their flights. Kid you not, they are.
That alone should stop you, but it's not even the strange part. 3 years running, this same beer has landed on the Sunday Times list of Britain's fastest-growing private companies. Not once, 3 times. Against every private company in the country, not just drinks brands. Here's the number that makes people put their phone down. £7.8 million, then £21.3 million, then $44.9 million. Inside 3 years. Say that slowly. £44.9 million, from a brewery most of Britain had never heard of half a decade ago. That's not a beer brand having a good run. That's a beer brand quietly dismantling its competition while everyone was busy laughing at the man who owns it. And almost nobody has actually explained how. So stay with me, because the real story isn't the beer at all. Let's start where this actually begins. Not with Clarkson, but with 2 people whose names barely make the headlines. Rick and Emma Keane, who registered a small Cotswold brewery back in 2004, at a time when nearly every small British brewer was obsessed with ale. Rick built the lager recipe himself, sentence by sentence, batch by batch, in a business nobody outside Bourton-on-the-Water had heard of. No fame, no headlines, just a man trying to get one thing exactly right. That obsession is the thing that eventually caught Clarkson's attention. In 2021, Clarkson, the same man who built an entire television career out of getting things wrong on purpose, and entrepreneur Johnny Hornby bought into the business, using barley grown on his own 1,000 acres at Diddley Squat. A year later, Cotswold Brew Co. disappeared. Hawkstone took its place. And that's where the story most people stop telling actually starts to get interesting. Because this wasn't a slow handover. This was a switch flipped overnight. On the 23rd of May 2024, Rick and Emma Keane stepped down from the board. The next day, the very next day, Clarkson is formally registered as controlling owner, holding between 25 and 50% of the shares and the voting rights. One day. That's the entire gap between the founders leaving the room and Clarkson owning the room. That's not a business drifting into new hands. That's someone standing by the door, waiting for it to open, and walking through it before it had even finished swinging. 7 weeks later, Hornby is registered on identical terms. And right in the middle of that window, a man named Owen Jenkins is brought in as managing director. Someone who spent years learning the business from inside CNC Group, the company behind Magners and Tennent's, 2 of the biggest names in British drinks. Think about what that hire actually means. You don't poach someone out of a major drinks conglomerate by accident. That's a phone call made on purpose, to get one competitor's playbook working for the other side. Somewhere inside a rival boardroom, someone is still trying to figure out exactly what left with him. There's a quieter kind of loyalty running underneath all of that noise, though. Hugh Van Kootsum has sat on this board since March 2019, long before Clarkson had anything to do with any of it. And he's still there today, having watched founders leave and a celebrity walk in without ever once walking out himself. And Rick Keane, the man who actually built the recipe, is still on site as master brewer, long after handing over control of the company he started. The people who know how to make the beer never left the building. The people running the business around them just got a lot more ambitious. Ambitious is putting it mildly. Clarkson has said, in public, without blinking, that he wants Hawkstone in 2,000 Damzebel pubs, from the Pacific Northwest to Brisbane. 200,000 pubs. Sit with that number for a second. That's not a man happy with a nice little farm shop beer. That's a man treating a 20-year-old Cotswold brewery like the opening chapter of something global. And judging by the numbers you've already heard, that ambition isn't just talk. It's already on track. Here's what should worry every competitor watching this closely. A lot of fast-growing drinks brands fund that kind of ambition by quietly selling pieces of themselves to outside investors, just to keep the lights on. It's the oldest trick in the growth playbook. Grow fast, hand over control slowly, wake up one day working for someone else. Hawkstone didn't do that. In March 2025, the company registered a new secured lending facility with Barclays, the same bank that had backed the business years before Clarkson was ever involved. An ordinary loan, the kind any serious growing business takes to fund expansion. Nothing sold off, nothing quietly handed to somebody else's balance sheet. On top of that, this summer, the company created an entirely new class of growth shares, a way of rewarding the people building the business as its value climbs without touching a single share Clarkson or Hornby already hold. Put those two moves together, and here's what you're actually looking at. Not a company preparing to be bought out. A company building its own bench, funding its own war, on its own terms. And that growth had to be fed by something bigger than one farm. Hawkstone started as barley from diddly squat alone. It now pulls grain from other British farms as well, which means every extra pint sold is putting real money into growers who have never met Clarkson and never will. Every British farmer knows exactly what that kind of money means when it lands in an account that's usually running on hope and weather forecasts. This stopped being Clarkson's story a while ago. It's theirs too now. Now here's the one thing even this channel couldn't nail down cleanly, because pretending every number lines up perfectly would be a lie, and you deserve better than that. Some reporting puts Hawkstone's headcount at 35 for the year to March 2025. Other reporting, covering that exact same window, says it grew from 28 to 53. Nobody's hiding anything here. When outside reporters can't even agree on your headcount, it's usually not because something's wrong. It's because you're growing faster than anyone standing outside the building can count. So pull all of it together, because the pieces only make sense once you see them side by side. A brewery nobody wanted to write about. A founder who stayed to keep brewing it exactly right. An owner who didn't wait around once the door opened. And a managing director poached straight from the inside of a rival empire. Growth paid for the old-fashioned way, through a bank, not by giving pieces of the company away. A supply chain that stopped being one man's farm and started being half of British barley country. That's not luck. A famous face on a can didn't do that by itself. Here's what's still ahead, and it's worth staying for. The accounts covering that £44.9 million a year haven't even been filed yet. When they land, that will be the first time this number is confirmed on the public record instead of just reported in the press. Given the pattern of the last 3 years, don't expect that filing to slow anything down. And while all of that's been happening quietly in boardrooms nobody was watching, a farmer's choir carrying the Hawkstone name walked onto a stage this year and won Britain's Got Talent. Same name, same momentum, turning up in places nobody would have predicted. Which brings us to the real question here. Out of everything built around that one farm, the beer, the pub, the show itself, which one do you think was actually the smartest move he ever made? Tell me in the comments. Thank you for watching and subscribe my channel.